Trayvon Martin, hoodies, Skittles, race, hypocrisy, Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, liberal media. I mean, I have to say this, some people must be thanking God that this unfortunate teenager went out that day because the press they're getting from it. Kira Davis is a writer and blogger who joins us now from Los Angeles. Welcome to you, Kira.
Hi, Michael. Thank you.
Now, it's so bloody awful on so many levels because of course, there's racism in society. I don't really know what happened in this case, but a lot of very divisive people are saying extremely divisive things. It must be a bad situation right now in the States.
It's gotten very ugly. I tend to agree with you, though. I think people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson were kind of salivating to get down there to Florida to jump in on this. I really think that Al Sharpton is using this to become relevant again. And it's sad. It's inflaming the situation, and I don't think it's helping Trayvon Martin's parents heal from what must be an awful, awful situation.
They seem, in fact, to be the better people here. I don't think they've really got involved in the mud of the whole thing. They're saying, let's find out what happened. Obviously, they care. It's their son. But as far as I've seen, they haven't been hysterical. They're not trying to exploit it.
I disagree. They've been... I do think that they're being exploited. I don't want to blame them, but I do know that Al Sharpton especially has been kind of trotting them around, and they've been on TV calling for action, and they've been marching, and so I think that they are inflamed and angry for good reason. But I think that their anger is being exacerbated by Sharpton and his crew. Yeah,
no, I can see that. I think you're probably right in that. Why is it, though, that I see that Geraldo has now apologized for what he said, but Thomas Sowell wrote a very good column where he said, hold on, the man has a point here. There are some honest voices, but not very many. And I'll be absolutely candid with you. Black journalists can comment on this issue with wisdom. If a white journalist says, well, hold on a minute, we don't know what happened, and maybe this kid wasn't an angel, and maybe Zimmerman didn't actually murder him, we're immediately accused of racism.
Yeah, racism is never going to go away. I don't believe that it will, and I think a lot of people have been surprised at how this situation has blown up into nearly a race war, and I think that these tensions have always been bubbling below the surface. It's just part of human nature. Unfortunately, there's too many people who will jump to race first rather than waiting for justice to take its course, and justice is slow sometimes. It's unfortunate that the race of a commentator determines whether or not they can honestly comment on a story, and that's a sad thing to see, and it's happening much too much here in the U.S.
Yeah, well, I mean, to a certain degree up here as well. We know there have been race attacks on white kids. I mean, they're all coming to the surface now because some people are trying to prove a point. Some people actually have an agenda, I have to confess. But there have been, on both sides, but there have been quite a few attacks where white kids have been targeted because of their race. Now, of course that's wrong, and if there's race involved here, it's wrong as well. But very few people are talking about moderation and saying that racism itself is a bad thing. What they're saying is that white attitudes are a bad thing.
Exactly. And I think you said at the top that, there is such a thing as racism, and so we don't want to dismiss the role that race does play in these things, but you're absolutely right. I mean, these types of crimes happen across the racial spectrum, and there are many unfortunate cases that the offenders have not been prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and those cases never get any attention. I think the other thing that really bothers me and a lot of other people in the U.S. is that the rate of black-on-black crime here in America. I mean, if Al Sharpton went to the south side of Chicago, where they had hundreds of murders last year among the black population, if he went and brought a tenth of his anger, a tenth of his cameras, a tenth of his words, and he marched there and he said, we're not going to leave until the killing stops, what would happen? There's no outrage over that, but there's outrage over this case, which represents a tiny sliver of murder in the United States. Yeah,
well, that's a very good point. I know Chicago quite well, and you could argue it's the best city for black Americans to live in. I mean, they make huge progress, and there is racism, but it's limited. Murder rate went up 50-odd% last year, some Hispanic, but overwhelmingly it's black-on-black crime. Where are the Black Panthers? Why aren't they organizing in some of those regions? There are many people of goodwill.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I'll tell you where they are. They're down in Florida, where the cameras are, where the sensation is. Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, people like that, they're race hustlers. They make their money off of keeping people angry. And it's not, black-on-black crime isn't sexy. You know, it doesn't make national headlines. It's one thing when those people are killing each other. It's quite another when someone of an outside race comes in to perpetrate the crime. And so that's what it is. In my mind, it's about money. It's about exposure. It's a game, sadly.
All right. Briefly, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, it's died down a little. I mean, at one point it looked like there really would be mass rioting. But the next couple of days, what do you predict?
I don't think it's going to die down anytime soon. I don't think Al Sharpton's going to let that happen. We're going to have to see what the police find out as they investigate. If they don't have enough evidence to arrest and convict Mr. Zimmerman, we may see this thing blow up all over again, even worse than it is now.
I agree with you. It's going to be fascinating to see him. And if they can't prosecute, how can? Great pleasure having you on the show. We'll have you back. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Michael.